Welcome to Be a Light with Mushan podcast. This podcast is dedicated to spread kindness, positivity, and promote the power of authenticity and human connection. Through the inspiring individual stories, it's a great reminder for us to realize that no matter where we are in life, we have the power to be the light for others. And those individuals on my podcast who illuminated my life, and they have great perspectives and inspiring insights to illuminate my journey as well as yours. So today I have invited someone from across the globe, and I'm so excited to invite Heather Hansen to my podcast. Heather, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to speak with you today. It's like we've switched sides of the world. And
Totally opposite. What
yeah,
time is it now in Singapore?
it's 8 in the morning for me. 8 in
Okay,
the
so here is 7 o'clock in
at
Chicago.
night,
Totally,
night
yeah.
before.
Opposite. Yeah, totally
Well, the
opposite.
future's bright. The future's bright. So I'm living in the
Yeah.
future. I
Yeah,
know.
I have been wanting to see you and talk to you for years since I heard of you from Martin, our common friend Martin Jukes, also my mentor, and he spoke highly of you. And
That's
when I
nice.
learned that you, who speaks English as the first language and professionally well, and also experience some accent bias. And then, wow, what a new perspective. So I immediately wanted to connect with you because for most people, they talk about accents. They would think about someone speaking English as a second language.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I know there's a lot to unpack. Would you mind to tell us a little bit about you, about your life and your journey first?
Sure, sure, yeah. Well, I was born and raised in California. So I grew up thinking I have no accent, right? Because as you're growing up and you're in your own community, everyone sounds like you. So it's only when you move outside of your community, you realize, wow, a lot of other people have accents, but you don't think that you yourself have one, right?
Yeah.
And I was always very interested in communication. I was big in speech and debate all through high school, which is, a pretty big thing in America. And I was also studying German in high school. And when I went off to university, I did a degree in international studies with a focus in language and society, like a linguistic anthropology degree. And then I took on German as a second degree. And through my German studies, that took me to Austria to study. I was working 2 summers doing internships in Switzerland and a bank and in marketing for a large conglomerate. And those were some of my first experiences with what I later learned was accent bias and a bit of linguistic discrimination because I was, of course, speaking High German, whereas in Switzerland and Austria, they have their own dialects. So already when you're speaking High German, you're different. And then on top of it, I was a foreigner. On top of it, it wasn't perfect. So I was already experiencing all of those things. And then when I graduated, I moved to Denmark to be with my then boyfriend, now husband of over 20 years. So that all worked out well. And that's when I learned Danish. And so I had to sort of turn off the German at that point because I was confusing the languages a bit too much. So now my German's quite rusty. I can understand a lot, but I don't speak it anymore without really serious focus. And then half of it comes out Danish. But my Danish is quite fluent. And it was while I was living in Denmark that I experienced a situation in a business meeting where, like always, someone made fun of some pronunciation of my Danish. And I just said, well, we can switch to English if you want. And it's like, no, it's so cute. You're so charming. We love it. We love hearing it. Say it again, that kind of thing. And I thought, if I was speaking English right now, you would never kind of minimize me in that way, treat me like a child. Oh, you're so cute. You know, you wouldn't treat me that way if I was speaking English. So I felt like my power was taken away. And in the same moment, I thought, wow, how privileged am I? Because I can say, let's switch to English, and I get all my power back. I mean, you coming from China, you can't say, oh, let's switch. I don't know if you're Mandarin or Cantonese speaking or which dialect you speak, but you can't be like, let's change to my dialect and then I can have all my power back and you can see what a confident and capable speaker I am and not judge me for the way I'm speaking, right? And so that was when it really clicked. Like, oh, now I see what's going on. I'm incredibly privileged speaking English in the world. And that was reinforced when I then moved to Singapore. And that was almost 20 years ago that I moved here, although I've been back to Denmark and back again. But when I moved here, the bias was the opposite. It was privilege. It was positive bias. Because in Singapore, the British and American English is sort of put on a pedestal as that's the proper English, that's the correct English. So I was able to build a great business here, helping people to have more confidence speaking, to public speaking, articulation training, because people would come and say, help me sound like you. I want to sound like that. And that's when I also, it just really reinforced how strong this bias can be, both positive and negative. So I've been on both sides, that negative side when I'm speaking foreign languages, but also this positive side of incredible unearned status due to the way I speak. Simply that. Nothing about my background or anything else, but because I'm white, I'm Western educated, and I speak a general American style of English that sounds like the Hollywood films and the newscasters. That gives me that level of prestige, which isn't necessarily deserved, at least not when I was 26 and starting my company here, right? So that's sort of the background and what led up to me coming into this field and really having such a deep, deep interest in it, and recognizing how the systems that are at play in our societies. Yeah.
Wow, that's such an amazing experience that allow you to experience the other side of the spectrum of this language, either negative effect or positive effect, and also provided you with a not much deeper perspective to understand others who speak English as a second language better. And to be honest, I feel so much better to speak with you because I feel like you understand me. Even if I
Yes.
speak with the accent, you have this acceptance and this empathy behind it. How about the students came to you in Singapore? What typical situations they experience?
Yeah, the typical situation here in Singapore is that someone from HR is normally calling me and saying, we really want to promote this person, or we want to use this person more. We want them to represent the company. We want them to be more public facing at a very high level in the company, speaking at conferences and so on. But we don't feel this person's global enough. And that's usually, it's really funny how many times I've actually heard that exact phrase. We don't think this person is global enough. And I always have to sort of press and say, well, what does that mean exactly? What do you mean not global? What does global mean? You know, what is it you're thinking is lacking? And I have to really be specific because I need to know, what is it you want me to work on here? But I already know what they're saying. And eventually it will get to the point where they'll say, well, this person just sounds a bit too Singaporean. Can you make, him or her sound more like you? And then it opens up a lot of conversations because it's like, well, why? Is the audience primarily American? Is that why you feel like you have an expectation you need to meet? Is it around belonging that they're moving to the States and they want to feel that they belong in a community, therefore they want to change how they speak? Is it because there's a boss who believes that this is the way a person should sound, and therefore we need to change this person to fit the boss's expectation? It's always an expectation that needs to be met. And the question is, whose expectation is it? And we have this societal expectation, and it's quite clear here in Singapore as well, this remaining feeling of colonization that's just still lurking, this idea that, well, the way the Westerners speak is correct or proper, and Singapore English is not. And yet it's its own variety of English. It has its own set of rules, its own pronunciations, its own vocabulary, everything. And yet it still is not considered to be at the same standard as, for example, American English. So if you're going to go out in the world and speak on a global stage, you need to speak a global standard, according to most of my clients. This is the general mindset. And therefore they want to make changes. Now that puts me in a very difficult situation, because I always say you shouldn't have to change, right? You should be able to speak how it's your identity. It's you. You should be proud of that. And we need to have some responsibility on the other side to make an effort and listen and understand. But at the same time, I know how the system works. I know that if they don't make some kind of changes, they won't get that promotion, because the HR is telling me this is the one reason we haven't promoted him or her. And it's like, they've been in the company for over 20 years. They're the perfect person for the role. And you're telling me you won't promote them because of the way they speak? And the fact that you can say that out loud just shows how this is still the most acceptable form of discrimination in the workplace that nobody seems to notice. It's totally okay to just be like, we really want to promote him, but we just don't like how he talks. Why is that okay? Why is that okay? Because it's not something that you can easily change, right? I mean, I'm sure that you've been in America for a really long time, right? It's not something that you can change. And yet there's this idea that, oh, well, you can always get better. That's not necessarily true when it comes to accent and speech. And there is no better. It's different. It's actually changing. It's becoming something else. And it's not a better or a worse. It's just closer to the expectation that society has set for what is an eloquent, global, educated, high-class speaker.
Yeah. Wow. To be honest, yes, it's so hard to get rid of the accents, especially for people like me who immigrant from another country when we are an adult or after 20, or missed the golden or maybe golden language era. And it's really hard. I mean, as they probably expected, you can get better, but I wonder if that investment is really necessary. I mean, really, really just spend so much time on just drilling one or two sounds if they don't really matter too much. I understand clarity is important, and but the accents, I agree, it's not easy.
And that's the big debate, right? Is this intelligibility versus comprehensibility? And when we look at it from a linguistic standpoint, intelligibility is objective understanding. So we play a recording and you write down what you hear, and then we can grade it and say, okay, you got 96% correct. That was obviously intelligible. That is objective. But that same person who gets 96% on that intelligibility quiz can then turn around and on a Likert scale rate someone really low, 2 out of 5 or 2 out of 7, on how easy they were to understand, how comprehensible they were. So they'll say, I couldn't understand a word, but they'll score 96% on a dictation. So there's subjective understanding of what does the person actually believe they understood, and what is real intelligibility, what they actually could copy down word for word what they heard. Now, it could be that people are so focused on understanding the words, writing them down, that they don't get the overall message, right? They don't get the overall understanding. So that could explain some of this. But at the same time, we find that understanding is very subjective. If you're making an effort to understand and you have motivation to understand, you're going to understand much better, much more than someone who's like, oh, this is too hard. I don't want to have to pay attention. It takes too much effort for me to understand this person. I have to focus too hard. I'm too tired. I'm turning off. I don't want to make that effort. And so you just say, oh, they're too hard for me to understand, and I'm not going to make the effort. So the listener's motivation is a huge piece of the puzzle that we completely leave out when we talk about communication training and we talk about teamwork and working with others in multinational environments. We forget about the listener's role in this, and we focus 100% on the speaker and making sure the speaker speaks a certain way. And we have completely forgotten in training and development, the entire other side of the equation. So it isn't exactly fair. And when people come with that argument of, oh, it's just too hard, it takes so much effort, it's like, well, I think the effort it's taking you to just understand your own language is probably less than the person who's speaking a foreign language right now and the mental load that they're carrying to speak your language. So if we're talking about, equity in the amount of effort we're putting in, I think that we can ask a lot more of our listeners. We really can. And we have to be a lot more conscious as listeners to know, do I have a bias at play here? Is there a reason I'm not giving this person the same level of respect that I would an English speaker who sounds like me? And it isn't only, like you said, it's not just the foreign speaker, the immigrant. It can also be regional. I mean, in the US, we have the Southern dialects. We have New Yorker, we have Minnesota, we have Florida, California. We have very specific regional accents and dialects. We also have ethnic accents, dialects, African-American English, Latino. We can hear race, we can hear ethnicity based on the vocabulary, based on the tone, based on articulation, pronunciation of certain words. So it's not only an issue for people who learn the language. The accent bias is at play throughout, just when we meet someone who speaks differently from ourselves. So we always have to be aware.
Yeah, well, this creates the deep level of the bias and the discrimination, just not so obvious. However, it plays a huge role, especially in the workplace. So what kind of strategies usually you give to the HR, for example, HR professionals who come to you to help their employees to sound global?
It's so hard because, I need to help that individual to make the small changes necessary to meet that expectation, whatever it is. And it's never to make them fully sound American or British or whatever it is the person calling me wants. I have to make it very clear that that's not the goal. And I have to do a lot of educating on this other side to say, what about the listener side, and why is it you think that that's necessary, and all of those things. But I'm not going to be able to change this system for the rest of my life. I mean, we're barely at the first step of raising awareness and understanding around linguistic bias. People are very much not aware. So we're barely scratching the surface here. So I do try to educate on that side, but that's a much harder sell. I have run accent bias training, and I've done many talks on accent bias, and it's very nice to see there are more and more inquiries from companies who want to learn more about it. Because right now, the main thing we're lacking is training and awareness around linguistic bias as an issue, as a thing. And it's in no way meant to point fingers or force people to speak differently. It's not that. It's just about raising awareness to say, are you aware that when you hear someone speak, there's this unconscious process going on where you're kind of sorting and deciding whether or not you're going to listen to them. And it's something that's very instantaneous. And are you just aware of it? And that's the first step of what we need to do. But as far as, the real advice that I give on a more personal level, especially to the individual that I'm typically working with, is to just keep speaking. Because what happens in the workplace is the person with the minority accent, for example, who's having difficulty being understood, will become embarrassed, will turn down their voice, will press mute, will, stop participating because they're embarrassed to speak up. And the same thing is happening on the other side, because the great majority of speakers, they do want to understand, they do want to connect, they do want to communicate, and they feel embarrassed because they can't understand. So they feel embarrassed every time, like, I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, what? And that's like, gosh, I just can't understand. And I feel so bad asking again and again and again. And so they're also embarrassed. So what do? They avoid that person. So this person avoids speaking. This person avoids interacting with the other person. And so we end up avoiding. The only way that we can get better at understanding accents is by having more contact, not less. So we have to fight that natural tendency to avoid embarrassment, avoid discomfort, and we have to work through that, because the more we talk and interact, the easier it gets to understand. And everybody's accent is unique. It's individual. Your accent is going to be different from another person from China, from a totally different area with a different dialect. It will be different. And you can probably hear that when you meet other Chinese, but from an American perspective, they would never hear the differences. They wouldn't know. They just lump it all in like China accent, right?
Yeah.
But there are very specific differences. The same happens with Indian. They'll say, oh, Indian English. There's many, many different accents that on English from India. So we have these, stereotypes as well. But the only thing that can change it is by having more contact, listening more, interacting more. And then there are certain things that we can do. For example, on this, I'm just going to refer to it as American because that's, your situation, but the Americans that are interacting with you, or anyone with a different accent, it's about not saying, I'm sorry, what, I'm sorry, what, I'm sorry, what, can you repeat that? Can you repeat that? If they've said the same word 5 times and you haven't understood it, you're not going to understand it the 6th time, right?
Yeah.
It's not about repeat. It's about, could you rephrase it? Can you tell me this in a different way? Obviously, I don't know what this word is you're saying right now, and I'm not going to understand it if you say it 100 times. So I need you to say it in a different way. And that's the other skill that I teach, my client is, okay, if you know that there's a word that's difficult, that people misunderstand, change it. Why are you forcing yourself to use these words that are so hard for you to say? Change it to something easy, right? There's no reason to be stuck on that, because you also get super self-conscious and nervous when you get to that word in the sentence that you have to say. Change it. No one's forcing you to use that word. And if people are misunderstanding, use a different sentence, change it. That's one of the big ones. And then the other, a lot of times people will give the recommendation to ask someone to spell it. But I don't know about you, but when I have to spell things in a foreign language, saying the letters, the names of the letters is really hard for me. Like in Danish, saying the vowels, spelling my name, Heather, the E sounds like I to them, and the A sounds like E. And I can't say it's really hard for me to say the letter names correctly. So if I spell it, it's like, that's not going to help at all. It's going to make it worse. So it's more about, hopefully, if you're face to face, writing it down. Could you just write that one word for me? I'm stuck. Or if you're on a call, putting it in the chat. Could you just write that in the chat for me? And then you can read it. And that's like, oh, okay, now I got it. So these are like really, really simple, small little changes in the way that we're interacting that can get over that hurdle a lot faster, instead of the what, which doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, being flexible and being consistent, just keep practicing, I guess, keep speaking up. That is a great way.
And that's usually the biggest change I see in my clients. We aren't changing so much the specific sounds. Yes, some of them. It's just about clarifying some of the sounds sometimes. So making sure a word ending is clearer, that, there's a greater separation between some of the sounds, that there isn't crossover on different consonants, because we really need every consonant sound to be unique. So we might work on just clarifying some of those things. But really the biggest change is the confidence they have going into conversations. Because now they have the list of words that they know are difficult, that they've spent extra time practicing, that they know why people are misunderstanding them. and how they can work around those misunderstandings. And they have a greater sense of confidence in the fact that it's okay to have an accent, that it is their identity, that they don't have to change. And as long as they can, be understood and clarify what their meanings and what they're saying, then that's successful communication. So it's usually this larger sense of confidence in speaking up more, participating more, and not being afraid of the misunderstanding, of being able to be like, okay, I know sometimes they're going to misunderstand, but I know how to get around it now. I know why. And then I know how I can change what I'm saying to make sure they do. And that just gives you a greater level of confidence as the speaker. But again, the listener still has a lot of work to do, but that's the side of the equation that we're struggling with still.
Yeah. Well, thank you for needing this, how to say, this direction to get people to have more awareness in this called accent bias and unconscious bias. Like people didn't even realize that they probably don't want to be biased, but because of this just exists, the first step probably is to create awareness. So in workplace, if they can foster the environment that more supportive and forgiving, or even encouraging people to make whatever mistakes, for example, mistakes, it's okay. If don't make it a bigger deal of some of the small mistakes, definitely would help others to feel more comfortable, to practice more, or just to speak up more.
That's the hope.
Yeah. So I see, I know you have a book, Unmuted. And Unmuted is such a great title as to address this issue. Would you mind to talk a little bit about your book?
Yeah. Okay. So, Unmuted was written during the pandemic, and the title came from the fact that we were all jumping on Zoom calls, team calls for the first time. And for the first 5 minutes of the call, it would always be, oh, you're on mute, you're on mute, you're on mute. I mean, how many times do we hear that? Every single call, right? Somebody was always on mute. Every time somebody went to speak, they were on mute. And then I was really starting to think about it. Like, yeah, we really do need to be unmuted to be heard. But I was also thinking that long before the pandemic, so many of us were on mute, and we were muted in our relationships, in our families, in our workplaces. So many people already, before the days of video calls, they were not speaking up. They were not expressing themselves. And the question became why? And, this is the kind of training that I've been doing for, 20 years now, practically, is going into companies to say, okay, why are we not speaking up? Why are we not having the conversations that need to be had? And what's keeping people from unmuting and being their full self at work? And what I found and what I've struggled with for a lot of my career was the focus on confidence as the only building block in communication. So like we were saying, always focused on the speaker, building their confidence. They just need more confidence. If they aren't speaking up, it's because they just aren't confident enough. And regardless of language and first language and everything else. But I saw it as a much more holistic system. So what I talk about is in Unmuted is a framework where, yes, we focus on confident communication, building self-confidence and skills confidence. But we also look at conscious communication, and we look at connected communication. So conscious communication is all of this self-awareness, cultural intelligence, the motivation to want to succeed in communication. That's what I consider the conscious communication piece. And then the connected communication is how well do people feel that they belong? And is there psychological safety? Do people feel a connection to the people they're working with? So if you think of this as a Venn diagram, we have the conscious, confident, connected. And what's maybe more interesting than those three pieces are the overlaps. So when we look at someone who is feels very connected, like they really belong in the workplace, and they're also very confident. But maybe they're lacking a little bit in the conscious communication area. That overlap is considered too loud. So this is the person who can dominate the conversation, dominate the meeting. They bring all the ideas, they talk over people, interrupt. We all know who that person is in the team. And their voices are too loud because they simply maybe aren't aware, haven't stopped to consider that the quieter people in the group also have ideas, but they have no time to break in. And because that person's dominating, right? And then we have the people who are connected and conscious, but missing that confidence. Their voices are just too soft. They've turned down the volume. And then we have the people who are conscious and confident, but they don't feel connected. Maybe they've been trying to speak up a million times. They always get shot down. Maybe every time they speak, someone interrupts them. Maybe they've told their ideas, but nobody takes them seriously. No one implements them. Or every time they speak up, someone else kind of ends up coming in. The loud voice claims it and gets the credit for it. These people just finally give up and they press mute and they say, I'm not trying anymore. I'm done. And they're the ones that are at risk of leaving and probably taking all of their other conscious communicators with them, their friends and their close teammates. So that's what I was trying to really bring forward with Unmuted, was this idea that we need to look at communication in the workplace a lot more holistically. We need to take the focus off of simply the speaker and having good presentation skills to widening that to look at the cultural intelligence of the team, how they're working together, the psychological safety of its members, because we have to have those foundations in place before the confidence even matters. You can be totally confident, know how to give a perfect presentation, but if your boss doesn't want to listen to you, then you're never going to share those skills. So that's really what Unmuted is about, having an equal balance of conscious, confident, and connected communication. So you land right in that sweet spot in the middle where you feel that you can be unmuted, you can share your ideas, and they are also well received and accepted, not necessarily agreed with, but that people listen and respect. And that was the real goal of the book.
Yeah. Well, I love this framework. 3 C's, right?
Yeah.
Conscious, connected, and confident communication. And also it covers not only the individual, but it's a big environment. Needed to play a big role in this whole holistic communication system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And also it's always like two-way street, like communication. I totally agree. I'm pretty fortunate currently at my company, and I feel this, definitely feel this supportive this energy. So I'm definitely more confident. And also we have those unconscious bias courses. Even for me, I thought I was, because I'm from a different country and from a minority group, I would have a broader kind of perspective for different groups. Sometimes I found myself being biased. So, but again, having those training and this education is very important.
Yeah, because we're taught by our culture, right? The shows we grow up watching, our teachers, our parents, we just suck all of that in, and we don't even realize how it's affecting us, right? As women or men, as a certain race with a certain language, it's all there. And it's very, very normal and natural to have these biases. But the problem is when we aren't aware of them, they can sort of rule us instead of us managing and ruling them. If I'm not aware that I have a bias, then I simply act based on that bias without having checked it and said, oh, wait a second, I don't think I'm giving this person the same attention that I would someone else. I know that it's because the accent is more difficult for me. I need to make a stronger effort. Like, I have to be able to stop and interrupt that process to then reassess, realign, so that I'm giving the same amount of effort and trying just as hard to make that connection, because it is easier to just connect with people who are just like you. It's easy, it's
Yeah.
simple, it's
Yeah.
natural, it's safe. But we have to be willing to, and especially in our world today, it's so global. You can,
Yeah.
I always tell people, you could be sitting in your living room in California, in my hometown, having never left. And even
Yeah.
your life is very global because
Yeah.
you're consuming content across the internet that is very, very global now. You can easily have colleagues all over the world that you have to deal with, even if it's, customer service support and things like that. You're going to have contact with people different from yourself. It's very, very difficult, I think,
Yeah.
today to be in an island of yourself.
Yeah.
It's very, very global. And the people who know how to interact and adapt in those environments are the ones who are going to see the most success, and the ones who are curious about
Hmm.
that will definitely go the farthest.
Yeah. Yeah. To be open for other
Yeah.
voices, for other
Mm.
culture. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely that makes big difference.
Yeah.
Since my podcast, as earlier I mentioned, it's dedicated to spread to promote kindness and positivity. What do you think, like being kind or being positive play a role in this dynamic
Oh,
this
wow.
conversation? Yeah.
Yeah, I think kindness is the foundation of it, right? I mean, going into conversations with curiosity, I think curiosity is really at the foundation of kindness as well. Being curious about other people, wanting to learn about them and from them, knowing that you have something to learn from everyone, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so important to remember in our communication, especially in a workplace, is that we can learn something from everyone. No one has all the answers. If you're going into conversations assuming you're better than, smarter than, more worldly than, I don't know what, more anything than the other, then it's going to be difficult for you to show that kindness. So it's about always having curiosity,
Hmm.
being kind, being understanding. The whole conscious communication bubble is really all about kindness.
Yeah.
Giving people time, holding the space for them to think, especially when we're looking at language,
Yeah.
giving people time to, if they needed to translate or find a word or fix a pronunciation so that I can better understand it, give it that's all showing kindness.
Mm.
Simply really listening is an act of kindness, because
Yeah.
how many people feel that they're really listened to,
Yeah.
especially in the workplace. So I
Yeah.
think that, kindness is at the foundation of all of this. If and maybe that's a way for people to connect with these topics more, by
Mhm.
recognizing that I'm being a kind person. I think we can all agree throughout the entire world that kindness is a good thing. It doesn't matter which political side you're on or anything
Yeah.
else. So if we can maybe connect more with that, then maybe we can work around a lot of the different biases that we see, and yeah, give people more of a chance to express themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Create a space and give people a chance, yeah,
Yeah.
to speak up and to be themselves, the authentic themselves. Yeah, that's amazing. And then when we were talking about this topic, and my two mentors from my current company come to my mind, is they just shined on my life with their kindness and generosity and curiosity. And one of them, one time, perhaps she noticed that I probably am from the kind of a culture, like I see the rank, because she's
Yeah. Yeah.
high level chief chief
Yes.
officer in the company.
Hmm.
One time she told me, I want you to do one thing for me, is we are equal. You need, yeah, we're equal. It's okay. Like, just talk to me just like I'm your friend. And that kind of kindness really encouraged me so much. It
Yeah.
energized me and make me feel so, just so supported. Like, yeah, so supported. Then
Yeah,
I
and
never
that's yeah.
forgot. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
an interesting reaction as well, because that is so culturally ingrained, right? I mean, you're coming from, to get into, the cultural intelligence side of things, you're coming from this culture with a very large power distance, right? That's
yeah,
what we
yes.
call it. Yeah, which I know that you know this stuff too. But to come from that power distance culture to one that's flatter, I had a similar experience when I moved to Denmark because I started doing a master's program there. And in America, although we are much more flat than China, for example,
Yeah.
we still have a lot more hierarchy than somewhere like Denmark, which is like
Mm.
the ultimate flat hierarchy.
Oh.
There have even been, case studies done around companies that don't even give titles in the workplace. I mean, it can be
Oh.
incredibly flat. So I went to the university and I wanted to call all of my professors Dr. So-and-so or Professor
Yeah.
so-and-so.
Yeah.
And they really had a problem with it because Denmark is all first names, all first
Yeah.
names. And my professors would be like, Heather, please just call me Dennis. And I'm like, I can't. So for me, although I know that they were trying to be kind and be like, we're on the same level, that
Yeah.
it was very hard for me because it's like, no, we're not on the same level. Like you've worked, you have a PhD, like you've put years and years into this. You are intellectually superior to me. You are, it was very, very difficult for me to bridge that
Hmm.
gap. So
Wow.
I really like your reaction that you were able to embrace that
Hmm.
and that it felt good to you because I know that also with a lot of my clients who are trying to, compete in these multinational companies and be recognized, a lot of the feedback from Western colleagues, bosses will be, they just don't speak up enough. They're always being more submissive and there's this huge gap between us. I just want them to talk to me like a friend, like just like your
Hmm.
mentor's saying.
Yeah.
And for them, they're saying, yeah, but that's hard. Like that's not natural for me. That's difficult for me to do because I'm trying to show respect. So it's this
Hmm.
idea that I'm showing respect by not challenging you and showing and giving you respect because of your authority position. Whereas the person in authority is saying, no, respecting me is being open with me and talking to me. So we have this
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
cultural divide there. How did you overcome that? I mean, how did you have this positive, or did you have a time where it was like, ooh, this is really hard?
Yeah, I gotta say it's like a gradual
Yeah,
process and also person to person different, people to
yeah,
people different.
that's true.
I still, even in the United States, I mean now much better. In China it's like this,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but here maybe it's like this.
Hmm.
I can talk to my bosses and or leaders and much better. Like now I talk to you, I feel more connected because if I see you like a superior role, then it's hard for me to open my mind and my heart and just myself. It's really hard to stay real and authentic. So I need my mentors helped me a lot, just in the recent couple of years, uh, by just being a great listener and
Yeah,
also accepting me talking whatever uh, struggles I have in life or something, and they were very supportive. That really helped me to gain this confidence
yeah.
level to embrace this opportunity, like great opportunity for me to be the real me. And they just see people value the real me. I don't need to be a perfect someone else. I just needed to be me and they still value me. So I really love that, as you mentioned, like curiosity is the foundation and kindness is another, like a stepping stone to help people to close
Yeah.
this communication gap. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and it sounds like what you're saying is the leaders that you have worked with as well have really built the trust, right? That they might say like, "Come to me, talk to me, be open with me. We're on the same level." And I hear this being said a lot in a lot of companies, but then the feedback will be, yeah, but when I do, they don't listen. Or when I do, they shut me down. But it sounds like your leaders have over time built that trust that every time you tested, okay, let me open up a little more, let me open up a little more, that it was really well received. And that they built that trust with you that no, I do really mean it. You know, I do really want to know your opinions and your ideas. And I think that trust is just so important. And again, that goes back to the kindness that they were showing, pure kindness towards you. And that shouldn't be something we should have to ask for. That should just be normal, that we're open and kind with one another. But that's really what was building the trust, it sounds like,
Yeah.
in your situation, which is fantastic. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. I think kindness is so important. And then that's
Mm,
why I'm also so passionate about this podcast. I do this just out of passion and out of my like purpose. I
mhm,
yeah, as sometimes my daughter even said, you even don't have so many followers and you don't make any money for that from that, but you're doing that month after month. I said it's okay
mm,
because of that. See, I met excellent people and sharing great stories and
mm,
the perspectives and just and everyone actually I invited on my podcast, the foundations, they have kindness. They show
mm,
kindness,
mm.
including you, Heather. And thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much for
you.
being on my podcast.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting
Yeah.
me. This has been so nice, and I've loved hearing your stories and getting to know you better too. So thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you. Wow, time goes by so
It
fast. Oh
really does.
gosh. I just, yeah, I loved what you shared, and you have such a rich experience in
Oh,
language, in culture. I would love to continue to have more conversations in the future. Probably
absolutely.
invite you back for another
Great.
episode
Happy
in the
to.
future. Yeah.
Happy to.
So tell
Mm.
me a little bit about your life in Singapore. What's the difference? Western and the Asian, you know, could be so different. Did you find it challenging in the beginning?
Um, I don't know. They call Singapore the gateway to Asia, right? Because it's
Yeah.
it's a much easier move from the West because it is very, very Western in that sense, right? So I remember when I arrived, I actually didn't like it very much. I felt like it was America on steroids. And I had left America because I didn't
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
culture. But the competitiveness and the drive and in the beginning it was a bit much, especially coming from Denmark, where I was really going from like the flattest, like
Yes.
everyone is the same, don't ever think you're better than anyone else, and don't stand out, and then you come to Singapore where it's like they call it the 5 C's, like cash, card, condo, car, and something else. I don't, club, the sports club, like your membership, right? It's all about like being the best, being the biggest, the fastest, the smartest, the everything.
Uh-huh.
And that was a bit shocking at first. And it took me a little while to get used to it. And then I started my company, and then I sort of had my own life here. Because it's also, I had those, that extra dimension of being the trailing spouse, right? So it was my husband's work that brought us here. And then I had to sort of sort out what's my role here? What am I doing?
Yeah.
And that took some time before I started my company. And then once I had my company running, it was, I had something for me. And then that just took off. And then I've been extremely happy here ever since. And I actually feel like it's a really, really nice fit for me in Singapore because it does have that, because I am one of those people with a very strong drive and large ambitions. And that was sort of dampened when I was in Denmark. I wasn't allowed to be that kind of person and to celebrate success of others and to share what I'm doing. That isn't really as accepted there. So I love that about Singapore. And at the same time, there is that element of community, right? That you get from a more that collective that comes from the Asian cultures that you don't see as much in the West, which is so individual. So it's a really nice balance. I mean, I love it here. I love it. Yeah.
That's
So we've been
amazing.
here about 15 years total, like in two stints,
Oh,
but since '06. So we've experienced Singapore the last 20 years almost, but about four and a half, five of those we were in Denmark.
oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, we
Yeah.
visited Denmark once, and we went to a coffee shop, and it's people were just during like a weekday, and people were just having coffee and playing games. But it's their work hours, but so laid back. It's so
Yeah,
relaxing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
and
much more work-life balance, right? Which is very good. At the same time, I didn't have like that energetic drive there in the same way. I also wasn't in Copenhagen. I think if I had been in a more international city and had more of that energy, it might have been different for me. But we were in Odense, which is where my husband's from, and it's the third largest city, but it's like 300,000 people. I mean, it's like a village, I mean, it's teeny. So it's hard to go from,
California. Yeah.
6 million in Singapore back to like 300,000. Yeah, it's the size
Oh,
of like my hometown in California, which to
mm,
me is not, it's very small town, right? And so that was a tough fit. That was sort of what I was trying to leave, right? So I really do enjoy the very international, high energy, always moving, lots of great ideas. That just the energy that comes with a big city, I really love. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Where are you though? Are you in Chicago or?
I'm in Chicago, in the
Yeah.
suburbs in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been here before?
I haven't been to Chicago. No.
Yeah. Next
Yeah.
time when you
I
come, remember to,
know.
yeah, let me
I
know.
need to stop by Chicago. It's one of the places I'd really like to see. I've seen very little of America, to be honest. Last summer, well, a year ago, summer was the first time I had really spent time on the East Coast. First time in Washington, D.C., Boston. Like I really haven't seen much of the States because I left when I was like 22, just graduating university. I
Mhm.
left, so I was never a grown up in America. I didn't do much traveling. I didn't see much there. So when I meet people abroad, they've seen like everything, and I'm like, wow, okay, you've seen more of the States than me. I haven't seen anything. I've seen more of the world, but I
Yes.
haven't seen so much within the States. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, you have seen the world. You
yeah,
definitely have this
yeah.
very um, interesting and also how to say layered experience from different culture, different
Yeah,
backgrounds,
yeah,
different
it's been
environments.
interesting.
Yeah,
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 different
very interesting.
continents, right? Like
Yes, yeah,
I've gotten to experience, and that's sort of that's what I like about an expat life as well, and moving different places because it's just like chapters in the book, right? And
yeah,
it really is. They're like very distinct chapters where you live a certain way and you try out a different life, right? And then you move somewhere else and you try out another different life. And in Denmark, we moved out like we were like in the forest, we were on an acre and a half of land, lots of nature, bordering the forest. We had forest in our yard and had two mini pigs as pets and cats, and the kids ran all over, and we lived that life, and it was so cool. And I had a garden, and I did that life. And then I come to Singapore and I live a very, very different life in Singapore, and then that's very different from my upbringing in California. And so it feels like you just get as much out of life as you can, trying on all these different lifestyles and ways of living, and it's fun. It's not
yeah,
easy all the time, but
yeah.
it's fun.
How your kids, how your children,
Yeah. I have
the
two girls
different
that
culture?
are yeah, I have two girls that are 15 and 17. So they were born in Singapore.
Okay.
And then we took them back to Denmark. They were 3 and 5. So, and then they were there until they were 8 and 10. So their like childhood memories, their young memories, they remember Denmark as home. That's where because they don't remember a whole lot from Singapore when we left. At 3 and 5, the 5-year-old, when we came back, she would suddenly be like, "Oh, have I been here?" And I'd be like, "Yes, yes, yes, you've been here." Like, "Oh, I remember this, I remember that." But it was all a bit fuzzy for her. She could remember things from preschool, stuff like that. But the 3-year-old really remembered nothing. So for them, Denmark is kind of home. And but now, they've spent the great majority of their life here. So it's the typical third culture kid. If you ask them where they're from, it's a really complicated question because they feel, I mean, one of them says she's Singaporean, and I'm like, you're not Singaporean. Like, that's the passport, you aren't. I know you feel that way, but I've lived here my whole life. I know, but unfortunately, it doesn't give you the piece of paper. So she feels very much Singaporean, but then she identifies with Denmark. Neither of the girls really will usually talk about being American. Some of their teachers just like realized I was American. They think that my kids are Danish only. And then when they find out I'm American, they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, yeah. So, but it's also because I speak Danish, and so we'll speak Danish at home. We speak a mix of Danish and English, just whatever we feel like in the moment. And then because we all understand it all, so we just mix it all up. And yeah, so for them, it's interesting. But they I believe will probably go back to Europe for university, and then we'll see if they come back to Singapore or stay there. I'm not sure yet. Yeah.
That's
But they're
awesome.
both looking at Europe, probably like London or something like that. They'll probably head off, which is crazy. You know, I mean, I remember getting ready for university and trying to figure out, oh, where should I go in the States? I never even thought about going abroad for university until study abroad. But my kids, it's like the whole world is open to them. It's like, where do I want to go? And they have an American passport. They go to the US. They have a European passport. They can go anywhere in Europe. They have residency here in Singapore. They could stay here. But it's like, how do you even choose? I think that's so overwhelming. So these kids just have the whole world open to them. It's such a different way to grow up. But I think it's such a gift. I know they appreciate it. I know that they love the way they've grown up. So it's pretty neat. Yeah.
I have a daughter, 15-year-old.
Oh, same. Okay, so we're in the same boat.
It's the first time I visited the Boston area and visited some of the colleges around that area. Universities.
Yeah. And that's actually why we were in Boston, because my 17-year-old was doing the music program over the summer at Berklee School of Music in Boston. So that was the school she was looking at in the States, but now she's shifted and wants to go to Europe instead. But that was why I was over on the East Coast, because she had 5 weeks in Boston on her own. And I thought, I don't want to be 30-something hours away in Singapore. So I was traveling a bit and doing things on the East Coast while she was there. But Boston's nice. I liked Boston a lot.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Really, really nice. Yeah. And so many schools. Oh my gosh, what a student town, you know? Just university after university, and top universities, right? I mean, really great schools. So it's a nice place. Yeah.
Did your children, talking about accents, did your children experience any of the accents related incidents?
Yeah, a lot. They feel it a lot when they go back to Denmark and speak Danish, because they have, I don't hear it so much, but they're very self-conscious about having an English accent on their Danish. And there have been people that point it out or will make fun of the way they talk. And because they are Danish and they speak Danish quite fluently in social settings and things, but they can still stop and need to think about a word, or, you know, they have like 8 and 10-year-old Danish, right? It's not academic Danish or anything. But apparently sometimes people can hear that, they have a different sound on the Danish, coming from, because their native language is really English, and that's what they use the most at school. So that comes into their Danish, especially at the beginnings of trips and things like that. So they have definitely felt that, and they've had really kind of negative feedback and really been self-conscious about it. In English, it's funny. Their accents change when they come home depending on what teachers they have. So we've had years where they sound New Zealander, years they sound Irish, years they sound, I mean, it's crazy. And as in preschool, like I remember the older one coming home one day from preschool and comes in the door and is all upset and is like, "Ayo, mommy, I forgot my water bottle." And I'm like, what? It was like full on Singapore English. "Ayo, like mommy." And I looked at her like, what just came out of your mouth? And then she's like, "Oh, sorry, mommy, I forgot my water bottle at school." And she code switched back to American English, thinking I couldn't understand her. Like she was speaking her school language, and then she said it to me, and I was just shocked. And then she's like, "Oh, sorry, mommy." Yeah. So I mean, they've played with accents and the way they talk, like their whole lives. Which is kind of fun. It's fun. But they're much more fluid. Like, what is their accent? They don't really know. They tend to speak mostly like me, but it's slightly different. The international English they get in school is slightly different when all these international kids come together. It
Yeah.
leans American, very much American, but they they do shift in and out of different things, or they'll say some words with a British accent, and I'll be like, "Oh, what did you say?" Like, "Oh, I say it like this," and they'll fight me on what's correct, and it's like it doesn't
Yes.
matter. Like, you can say it
Oh,
however you want, but I say it this way, right? But yeah, and a lot of times they don't realize that they were saying something in a more British style because it was just what how the teacher said it, right?
yeah.
So those kinds of we're always talking about this stuff at home because it's such a big part of our life, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
daughter, was she, I assume, yeah, she must have been born in the States. So she just sounds like your typical American kid. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. To be honest, she thinks my husband is smarter than me because he speaks better English than me from the beginning,
Oh,
at least.
okay.
I don't know now if her mind is shifted.
It's always the kids correcting us, right? I mean, my
Yeah.
kids constantly correct my Danish. They laugh at my Danish. And I have a lot of my clients that come saying, like, I just want my kids to stop making fun of me. Like, can you help me? Because the kids know so much better than us, right? Yeah, and they learn it so young, so it's a little different. Yeah.
From like educator's perspective from you, do you think people actually speak another language would definitely help them to embrace more opportunities more openly or also more accepting?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest divide that I see. People
Yeah,
who are English speakers only, the monolingual English speakers, usually have the most difficulty
yeah,
communicating across languages and accents because they haven't had the experience themselves of learning a language and the steps that you go through, the stages you go through when you learn a language. In the beginning, you're just grabbing onto every sound and then, you're translating it to your language. And then eventually you get to the point where it's flowing a little easier, but you're forgetting certain words and you're grabbing at things. And until finally you get to a more fluent level, right? And monolingual speakers don't really understand that. Yeah, they had 2 to 3 years of Spanish in high school or whatever, but they haven't touched a language since. They haven't lived having the mental load. So it's really, I think it's very, very difficult to understand that when you haven't experienced it.
yeah,
The fatigue of going a full day in a foreign language on top of the daily stress that everybody's experiencing, but then having to do it constantly translating and thinking and struggling, and like that fatigue is so real. And so I see that as the biggest divide. People who speak multiple languages understand all of this. I talk about these things and they just get it immediately, and they understand how to interact because they've been on both sides of it. Whereas the monolingual speakers have a lot more difficulty really empathizing, truly understanding what it's like. Which is why I think too, in my work, it does tend, like you said from the very beginning, how it resonates with you, that you feel better talking to me because I've gone through it. I've actually experienced it. I know the feeling. I've been there. And that's very different from an English teacher who maybe doesn't speak another language and is just like, oh, you can do it, and la la la, and it doesn't like no, but you don't get it. Like, you've never been in my shoes. So I think it's important that we do have languages. And unfortunately, that's what all the schools end up cutting. And we just don't have enough, focus on the importance of language. And now with AI tools and things, it's becoming less and less necessary to learn languages, right? Because we have tools now that we could sit here and you could speak Chinese to me, and I can listen to it in perfect American English, and then I can speak English and you can listen to it in perfect whatever dialect you like. And like, why learn a language if we have the technology? But I hope that people will still do that just because it gives you a different understanding of human beings, right? And how we think and learn and process. And yeah.
I
So, yeah.
agree that it's still different. Yeah, I did see those type of tools. Actually, someone demoed it with me
Mm,
2 years ago, I think. like
Okay.
the translation thing.
Yeah.
However, I still love just this like personal communication. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
one we don't need another like third party to translate. It's just so much better. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like the
But
human connection.
do you feel that people, because you're communicating primarily in English, do you feel that people really know you when you're communicating in English? Do you feel like you're a different person communicating in English than in what is your native dialect? What
It's a Mandarin. Mandarin.
Mandarin? Okay.
Actually, I spoke my dialect from, in China, there were so many
Yeah.
dialects,
Yeah. Yeah.
thousands of
Yeah.
dialects. So
Uh-huh.
my first language is the dialect from
Yeah.
Hunan.
Okay.
And then Mandarin is, I
Is
started
what you,
in
yeah.
school. Yeah.
Right. Right.
I also speak Cantonese because
Okay.
when I was working in the southern city, I picked that up pretty quickly. Uh, right now, even though I make mistakes in my English, I prefer
Yeah.
using English when
Yeah.
I speak with the people who speak in English, of course,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because some of the current vocabulary is more just aligned with the current life more because I have been here for 18 years.
Right. Right.
However, if I talk about just daily things in life, not work related, I still can speak in Chinese very fluently with people and more comfortable. If we're talking about some of the subjects that only Chinese are familiar with, definitely
Yeah.
speak in Chinese.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, when I was in Denmark, even though I'm pretty much fluent in Danish, I still don't feel like I have the same confidence and the same strength, right? So I usually tell people if you don't know me in English, you don't really know me. I'm because in
Yeah.
English I'm very confident. I'll speak up. I have a lot of ideas. I think very fast. I move very fast. And there is just that little bit of everything is slowed down just a touch in Danish. I'm not as quick to raise my hand because I'm thinking, how do I want to say this? Is that going to make sense? Do I have the right words? And so everything's a little bit slower and I'm not as confident to raise my hand or give the presentation. Whereas in English, I would do it like everyone would expect me to do it, right? But
Yeah.
in Danish, it's like, no, it's okay. Like you do it. And so I'm much more shy and I don't feel like that's me at all, right? So I'm always saying, yeah, but you've never met me in English, so you don't really truly understand how big my personality is or how outgoing I am, or how fast the ideas in my mind are moving because I feel like I'm different in Danish, even though I lived there so many years. And I mean, I had 8 years there total. And I mean, still speak the language all the time, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I haven't been able to really get over that yet. So I think, but I do speak with a lot of my clients, who use English only and work and everything. And a lot of them say that. Even my husband would prefer to work in English than in Danish. Yeah. He struggled when we went back to Denmark because he had learned so much vocabulary in English in Singapore. And then we went back. He didn't even know the words in Danish.
Yeah.
So it was really hard for him to go back and then go back to Danish. It was really tough, which is so interesting to me. Just how much power English has, in the world that you end up using it so much and focusing on it so much that it becomes more comfortable than your own language it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now you speak about that. I also feel the limitation. Sometimes I would feel like there's a little bit of restraint there. Maybe it's
Yeah.
just consciously. That's
Yeah.
why I try to force myself to speak more. That's also why
Yes.
the podcast was born like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I just try
Yeah.
to
To get you to.
convey myself, and public speaking is something that I found is very empowering. I found that like words are very powerful and the messages are powerful, and the only way to overcome fear is to face fear. So that's why I just try to speak more. The more I speak, definitely it However, like now and then, I would feel this tiny bit of restraint in it.
Yeah. And that's why I always feel like, you don't really, I wonder if people really
Yeah.
understand me, Um, because then it brings up all those questions about like, what is your identity? Is it in the
Uh-huh.
way that you speak? Is it in the way that you
Yeah.
express? Like, how much of that is tied to the language itself? And there's just so many very interesting questions that come up,
Yeah.
when you think about those
Yeah,
things.
those are the good topics that I love to talk about, the like kind of accent or language culture related, them identity. And I'm glad you actually talked about this. So I think that that's
Yeah.
very common for
Yeah.
people to feel this struggle of finding their identity when they speak multiple languages, when they are in a different culture uh, that is different from their birth culture. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, well, this has
Wow,
been fun talking to you. I'm so
it's a
glad we
very, very
finally got to do
fun.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We're about to we have to wrap up. It's dragging long. I don't want to keep you too long. So, do you have any parting words with our audience?
I think it's just about, and kind of what we've just been talking about as well, like staying confident, speaking up, forcing yourself to speak up, just like you said, remembering that the only way to enhance the communication is to have more of it, not less of it.
Mm.
And to remember that, your accent, the way you speak is a part of you. It is a part of your identity. I'm not sure, exactly which little part and how deeply it goes, but it is you. And it's not easily changed. So express yourself as best you can in whatever situation you're in, and just keep talking. Stay unmuted.
Yeah, stay unmuted. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Heather. How people can find you, and also I will definitely link your book to the podcast.
Best places, I'm usually quite active on LinkedIn. It goes up and down depending on how busy I am offline, but you can find me on LinkedIn, as well as my website is heatherhansen.com. And my company website is globalspeechacademy.com. But most of my work around my writing and my speaking and accent bias is at heatherhansen.com. So yeah, I'm very happy to connect with other people who are interested in these subjects, and I love talking about it, obviously. So yeah,
Yes.
very interesting.
Thank you so much, Heather. That's my honor to have you here and to share your insights in accents and culture and all the biases and also identity. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being such a shining uh, and a bright light on this podcast. And I hope our audience found you and your stories very inspiring and encouraging. And
I hope so too. Thanks so much for having me and bringing up these topics and wanting to discuss it. It's great.
yeah, thank you. For our audience, if you like this episode, please like and share and just be a light with others, because no matter where you are in life, you have the power to be a light for others. Thank you. Thank you again, Heather.
Thank you.